When you hear the name Evin Prison, it's impossible not to think of the year 1979 and the Iranian Revolution. This prison morphed from a holding ground into one of the scariest places on Earth. Built in the 1970s by the Shah's government, it was meant to be a modern prison. But after the revolution, the new regime took over the prison and started filling its cells not just with criminals, but with people who dared to think, write, or speak differently. Journalists, poets, students, professors, political activists, all of them ended up behind its gates. Their crime, holding ideas that threaten the authority. How does a society change when thinking itself becomes a punishable offense? The years that followed turned Evin into a symbol of fear across Iran. Families would whisper its name, knowing that to be sent there was often a one-way ticket. No one ever came back from Evin. At least that's what they say. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have documented countless cases of prisoners being held without trial. Some disappeared into its cells for years. Stories of Evin spread like wildfire through the streets. A writer who questioned censorship, a student who dared to march in protest, a woman who fought for basic freedoms, all of them vanished into the dark walls of Evin. It became clear that the prison was not just meant to contain bodies, but to silence voices. One story that stands out is that of Haleh Esfandiari. She's an Iranian-American scholar who was detained in Evin in 2007. She was accused of plotting to overthrow Iran's government. In her memoir, she describes the relentless interrogations, the psychological pressure, and the uncertainty of not knowing what would happen next. She managed to get out and shared her experience, but countless others didn't. The 1980s saw mass executions carried out at Evin. Thousands of political prisoners were killed in secret. Their families never got to know what happened to them or where they were buried. Now, what does it say about a regime that its most secure fortress is not a military base or a government building, but a prison for thinkers? Evin's story is a chilling reminder that unchecked power often fears thought more than action. Why? Because once thoughts are set free, they can't be chained up. People may try to stop you from speaking your mind, but if they can't, they'll try to stop you from thinking. That's why Evin was built to silence those who dared to question the regime. It was a place where the very idea of freedom could land you in jail. So let's ask ourselves this: what is more dangerous to a society? The person who uses a weapon, or the person who uses words? To the rulers of Iran, words were more dangerous than weapons. That's why Evin became a fortress of fear. But history teaches us that no prison can bury ideas forever. Those in power may try to silence us, but our ideas will find a way to come back. It might be whispered, it might be hidden, but it will come back. The story of Evin reminds us that the freedom to speak and to think is fragile. It's like a butterfly. It needs to be tended to and protected. If we don't do that, it can disappear quickly. The walls of Evin might have been strong, but the ideas that were born and shared there were stronger. People like Malala Yousafzai and the students of Ferguson High School stood up against the powers that tried to keep them down. Just like those brave souls, we too can make a difference. We may not be able to change the past, but we can learn from it. The world is watching. It's watching how we treat those who dare to dream of a better world, how we deal with those who stand up for truth and justice. The story of Evin urges us to remember that the fight for freedom is ongoing. It's a fight worth having, and it's a responsibility we all share. As Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Let's use that weapon wisely and make sure that the sacrifices at Evin and places like it were not in vain. Today, the struggle continues around the world. People still face imprisonment and torture for what they think and say. Our world still needs heroes who value truth and freedom. Are you one of them? Will you stand up for what's right, even when it's hard? The story of Evin Prison reminds us that it's not enough to just stand by and watch. We all have a part to play. Whether it's speaking out against injustice or supporting organizations that protect human rights, each of us can make a difference. Remember the prisoners of Evin and let their stories be a call to action. Don't just be a witness to history. Be a part of it. Stand up for what you believe in. Together, we can create a better future. A future where no one has to whisper the name of a prison in fear. A future where every voice can be heard and every mind can think freely. Let's work towards that day. In the heart of Tehran, shrouded in secrecy, lies a prison known simply as Evin. Its name synonymous with tales of unimaginable torment, a place where shadows hold secrets and silence screams. Life inside was designed not merely to confine, but to break. And it wasn't just the beatings or the starvation. It was the quiet cost of bearing witness. Here, memories are buried and spirits are broken. Today, we'll peer through the cracks in its grim facade, letting the voices of survivors guide us. We'll explore the profound impact of solitary confinement, a punishment more potent than any physical torment. Survivors describe it as a world within a world, a place where time stood still. Imagine, if you will, a cell no bigger than a closet, the walls pressing in from all sides. Light flickers faintly through a high window, casting dancing shadows that mock your solitude. The air is thick with the scent of stale despair. Days turn into weeks, the only sound the echo of your own heartbeat and the relentless drip of a leaky faucet. Human touch becomes a distant memory, conversation a foreign language. Hope, once vibrant, dims to a flicker. You're left questioning, how long can a human spirit endure such isolation? What silent battles are fought in the solitude of a cell? For many, the isolation was worse than the beatings. It was a slow erosion of the mind, a descent into a world of shadows and silence. How does one recover when the greatest torment is the absence of another human voice? When the walls become both prison and confessor? These cells were not just places of punishment. They were laboratories of despair, where minds were stretched and broken. One former inmate recalled being led to a solitary cell as punishment. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving him enveloped in darkness. As minutes turned into hours, his imagination conjured images that danced in the darkness, transforming the familiar into monstrous shapes. The silence was deafening. Without the ability to communicate or receive any sensory input, the mind begins to play tricks, blurring the lines between sanity and despair. Sleep becomes a luxury, each awake moment stretching the boundaries of endurance. In that confined space, he confronted not just his fears, but the fragility of the human psyche. Such experiences were not isolated incidents, but systematic tools of oppression employed at Evin. The prison became notorious for its use of psychological torture. This went beyond the physical, targeting the very core of a person's being. Interrogations were not about seeking the truth, but about extracting a confession, a performance of compliance. Accounts tell of nights stretching into blurry days, filled with beatings, electric shocks, and sleep deprivation. The goal was not to uncover hidden knowledge, but to break the will, to force a confession regardless of its veracity. Prisoners were often blindfolded, bound and forced to sit facing a wall for hours. Any sound outside the room, muffled and distorted, became a source of intrigue and fear. In such an environment, the human spirit is pushed to the brink. When faced with such relentless torment, the mind's only defense is to shut down, leaving the prisoners trapped within themselves. Among the most disturbing practices were the mock executions. Imagine being dragged into a courtyard, the midday sun blazing. A rough cloth is tied over your eyes, a noose placed around your neck. You hear the metallic click of a gun being cocked nearby, the echoes of gunfire ringing out. Then you're thrown back into your cell, left grappling for breath, the image of non-existence burned into your retinas. Such acts weren't about eliciting information or instilling fear. They were designed to psychologically destroy, to convince prisoners that life had no value, that existence itself could be snuffed out at any moment. How does one reconcile with life after staring into the abyss of death? Marina Nemat, a former prisoner who was arrested at just 16, described how she was subjected to months of interrogations during her imprisonment in Evin. She detailed how she was forced to make false confessions and how her captors sought to break her spirit. Her story, along with countless others, serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. However, one of the most chilling aspects of Evin Prison was the uncertainty that permeated every cell. Prisoners didn't know why they were arrested, what their future held, or even if they would see another sunrise. This ambiguity added a layer of terror that was almost impossible to bear. It created an atmosphere of perpetual anxiety, where every creak of the floorboard or cough echoed with potential meaning. Today, the legacy of Evin lives on in the scars of its survivors. Their stories serve as a reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the indomitable spirit of those who survived. The question remains, how does one truly heal from such profound trauma? The answer, perhaps, lies in sharing their stories, in making sure that the world knows and remembers, for in remembrance, there is both pain and power. The pain of remembering keeps the atrocities alive, ensuring they are not forgotten. But the power comes from the realization that they happened, that such darkness exists, and that the only way to combat it is with the unwavering light of truth and solidarity. And then there is the cell. There is always the cell in places like this, the place where they take you when they want to make an example of you, break you, remake you in their mold. They call it Evin Prison in Tehran, Iran. I know we keep coming back to the idea of death here. Maybe that's all we end up with in the end, the threat of death. But for some people, the threat of death is enough. Some people will gladly die if it means not having to compromise their beliefs, their fidelity to a cause. That kind of courage is rare. To have that kind of faith in one's own belief system, it takes steel in the spine and a clear eye that refuses to flinch in the face of darkness. In Evin Prison, they try and snuff out the light in your eyes. They try and fill you with so much darkness you forget who you once were. There's a special place in hell reserved for those who run such establishments. The first rule of such places is that the walls have ears. Walls are thin, doors are made of glass. Every cell is watched, every whisper recorded, every visitor scrutinized. You cannot trust anyone. Not the guard who looks away while you get beaten. Not the guard who feigns ignorance as your books are burnt. Not the fellow inmate who shares your bread and your water. Because in the end, it is you who is most vulnerable. I remember listening to someone saying that if your cat dies, don't eat it. If your dog dies, don't eat it. Eat it anyway, says the voice inside your head. If a book falls apart, eat it. If a sheet of paper reaches out to you, eat it. Don't trust anyone, not even your reflection. It could betray you, and indeed it does. You wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, heart pounding against your ribs, wondering why you had that dream again. Why do they always come back to you in the middle of the night? You don't have to wait till the middle of the night. You can see them now, these demons, lurking in the shadows, watching you, waiting for you to blink first, waiting for you to crumble first. They break you in many ways. They strip you of your identity, force you to wear a badge with a number, no longer a human being, but a thing, an object. The worst of it, though, is the feeling that your whole life is wasted, that your potential is squandered, that your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations, everything that made you, is now being flushed down the toilet, flushed down the drain. And still, in spite of all of this, there are people who refuse to bend. They bargain with the devil. They say, take my passport, take my citizenship, take my job, my status, my home, my family, my friends, my life, my dignity, everything. But one thing you will not take from me is my thoughts, because that is where I draw my strength from. That is where I draw my sustenance from. My thoughts, my ideas, my identity. They are all intertwined. So here's to the people who bargain with the devil and win. Here's to the people who stand up to these centers of darkness and say, no, this stops now. You will not make an example of me. You will not break me because you have nothing to gain and everything to lose. I salute you. You are the real heroes of our times. The writer is the host of a show on a news channel. He tweets at Ahmed Shiraz. His latest book is an anthology of his columns titled The Threat of the Looming Dark.